Hey, it's me, your boy, Alistair Miller from the Supreme Court Tennis Podcast. Back on January 31st of this year, we filmed a podcast personal with Adriano Fuorivia, who was Denis Shapovalov's coach growing up. So it was myself, Adrian Winger, and Steve Mahar. We've known Age for a while, but we're happy to get on camera and sort of run the gamut on a few topics. We really liked it because if you know Adriano, he's a very honest guy, and with us, he was super honest with all the questions that we asked him. We ran into a bit of problem with the audio, so we apologize in advance that the audio is not up to this TSC standard. But with that said, here's our almost hour-long video interview with Adriano Fuorivia. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Supreme Court.
Welcome back. To a new one.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Supreme Court Podcast Personal. It's been a while since we've done a personal one, but we're back at it. I'm your host, Alistair Miller, and next to me, as almost always, that's Steve Marr right there.
Thanks, Al.
How you doing?
Good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thanks.
Great. And just trying to get by, that's Adrian Winger.
Hey, just trying to get by, buddy.
Trying.
Yeah, man.
And we're really pleased today to have a longtime friend of the pod and I guess friend and associate of ours, Adriano Fuorivia, with us.
That was good pronunciation.
Great to be here. Great to hear your voice.
Is that the first time that someone's butchered your name like that, or?
Oh no. I gave an interview in the summer after a big win of Denis, and she kept calling me Andre. First name. About 5-6 times in the interview, and I just accepted it and kept going. Well, it was live TV.
I'll tell you, I ran into a guy, this is at Davisville Tennis Club a couple months ago, and I ran up to him like, "Hey, Brian, good to see you." And this guy, it was really refreshing. This guy goes, "Hey, man, good to see you. I forgot your name." And I was like, "Hey, no problem. It's Al."
Daryl.
You know what? I appreciated that because normally we go on with that thing, but he just kept it real.
Yeah. You gotta be honest.
Good guy.
You gotta be honest.
Didn't know your name.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so Adriano is a high performance coach. He trains some players full time, and I guess he's fresh off working with Denis Shapovalov for how many years now? How many years was it, I should say?
It was almost 5 years, about 4.5 to close to 5. But
cool.
4.5, yeah.
Great, so 5 years with Denis there. Obviously a big influence, so I guess the pod has a bunch of questions for you about sort of what it was like training him growing up and sort of, I guess, the early days and kind of taking it from there. Sure. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I guess give us the story. Like, how did you initially get hooked up with Denis, and what's the background?
I guess I've always coached a couple of players. My style is just work with 1 or 2 players and do the best that I can rather than spread myself out.
Sure.
And basically I was just actually working with one of my players. I happened to see Denis there. I hadn't seen him in a while. Saw him in the Mom, and I said, "Hey, if you guys ever want to hit with us, join in." And
this was to Tessa? This was to Denis' mom?
Denis' mom, Tessa, and then hitting with my former student who is now his best friend. With Jonathan, and they were like 2-3 times a week. They were just hitting.
Great. For
a few months. It just it helped me because I didn't have to hit in.
Sure.
And it was better for them because they had better training with each other. So,
so how old would Denis have been at this time?
At that time, it was before his 13th birthday. It was about 12 and a half-ish.
Could you describe it like with the training, like the hours, number of hours, how many people were on the court? Like, what was his training sort of regimen like?
At the time when I started with him, he was only training once a day, and I kind of said, "Whoa, that's all?" And right away we doubled it. So we went to like 4 hours a day on court and added fitness.
How many hours a week would you say, ish?
Probably 18 to 20 on court, 5-6 fitness.
Cool. Wow. Gotcha. Yeah. And then I guess Tessa had worked with Denis a lot growing up and stuff like that. So what was it awkward at times, like you coming in with a new message, or like how did it segue from him hitting with you guys to it being you sort of being the primary coach in that situation?
Well, she actually had come up to me after we were hitting for a while and had asked if she understood that her son is only going to listen to a certain point,
sure, which
is normal amongst all kids and parents, and she I feel she respected me. She asked if I'd want to coach her son. We kind of started. I mean, we were hitting for months before, and I was kind of helping a little bit, but I wasn't like being the coach.
Sure.
But it was actually not as awkward. It was not a problem at all. She was actually quite easy, and
Great.
She trusted me to do what I had to. She knew what I put in, and she knew what I was willing to do, I think, and she really understood that. And, and it was easy, and she was what worked is she brought her player. She was a past player as well, so not only did she coach, but she had the player perspective, which I never had.
Sure, right there with you.
So
still looking for mine.
there you go.
Curious about, you mentioned you like to do this, you're more of a style, you like to work with just a couple of players.
Yes.
So this is not really Denis related, but for you, how did you get into a situation where you were able to just work with a handful of players?
Yes, I'd say I had a full-time job. I was actually working at the Federation in the office, doing competitive structure things, ranking things, and coaching. I loved coaching, and it was a hobby, and I always worked with 1 or 2 kids. That's all I could do, having no life, working all day, then working all night till late at night, and weekends and everything, going to tournaments.
And that's where you met Winger, right? Like that's, you were director of, I guess, something at Tennis Canada,
I was at Tennis Canada. He was in there. I mean, easygoing guy, talking tennis. We actually had hit, I think, just before that somehow. We played little dubs.
Yeah.
As well, and then I saw him in the office, and I kind of stole him.
was
I kind of stole him and brought him to my club's team.
Beauty.
Yeah.
No, that's how. Yeah.
Wait,
I forget that you were like a TC guy. Like what you were marketing for TC,
No,
right?
I was doing business development for the guys,
Okay.
so helping with corporate sponsorship, and so I was on the corporate side, and he was on the player development side. So he was on the other side of the office, right?
And you
I remember
he was in the suits, and
Yeah.
I was dressed like a tennis coach.
But how it worked out,
Nice.
you came to me and it's like, I heard you hit a ball.
Yeah.
And that's when you brought me to the COE,
Yeah.
and we played doubles.
Played
with
some
Boris
dubs,
on,
yeah.
And my buddy Scott McRoberts. And then after that, I think whatever, it was a good
I
match.
told him how much I hated his lefty serve.
Yeah,
Sure.
And then he's like,
Sure.
and then that's when he stole me. 'Cause
Nice.
I was living in Burlington at the time still, so he's like, what are you doing for the summertime? I'm like, you know what, I'm just a hack in Burlington, and plays maybe once or twice a week.
Right.
And he's like, come play for Veneto. And that's where we made our relationship. So from then we just
He's still there. Championship teams. He's captaining for how many years now? And
probably my 6th year
years.
now. I got a dynasty going here.
he should have captained 6 championship teams.
Yeah, that's right. It was a
Should've-
one.
should've
It was a
won,
one.
but-
Sorry.
That's
So I gotta
true,
ask,
too.
did Denis have a one-handed backhand before you saw Adrian?
Well, if he didn't, I would definitely go there.
You saw his lefty one-hander, you're like,
It was
oh,
crazy.
I know what I gotta do. I know what I gotta do. Yeah.
So then with Denis, like, well, is there something initially that you saw where you're like, man, like I want to work with this kid, or did he just have, in your opinion, was he just another kid that you happened to work with?
So at that time, the highest level kid I worked with was like provincially, like maybe regionally, provincially.
Sure.
Thought he was good. Thought he was a solid player, but you would never, I always have high hopes of what things can become.
Sure.
But you would never say, hey, this guy's gonna make it. This guy's got so much. I mean, he had good talent, but in the times that we were hitting together those months, the kid worked. Like he really worked, and that's talent can get you so far. But
Sure.
when someone works and wants it enough, and you can kind of see that, it's just fun to be a part of.
Sure.
Was it tough to get him to buy into doubling his training?
Maybe initially you might get some pushback, but when they realize why, I'm like, well, this is what the rest of the world's doing.
Right. Yeah.
It's not as hard as you think. It's just
Sure.
then they want it, they understand, and that's what they have to do.
Right.
Sure. Okay. So then you were like, Denis is around 12 years old. He's around there. You're working with him full time.
I started with him coaching. He was like 13, just past his 13th.
Oh, okay, just past 13. So then, were there any like big things at the time that you saw him play Max and you were like, man, like these are the values I really want to instill in him, or like what was, maybe it's tough looking back, but what was the big message on your end?
Right when I started with him, because he hit the crap out of the ball, which was great, and I think he was taught the right way, because that's why if you see him play now, he's fearless, but that came from before. He always hit the ball. But it was more of when to hit the ball, when to go for a winner, and when to stay in the point. Because at the time when I started with him, he was just like, he knew where to hit, but he didn't exactly play as smart as he could have.
So he knew how to hit a tennis ball, but not necessarily play tennis.
Point.
Yeah. So and at times like I tried to make it as black and white as possible, or just like you're inside the paint of the court, go for a winner. Anything else, you don't. It wasn't an easy transition, because he's got that fiery, go for it attitude, which I think has done the best for him because of that attitude.
Sure.
But I think once he did that quite well, he jumped so much in 6-8 months.
Sure.
Because he could hit anybody off the court at that age, even though they were 4 years older than him.
Sure. Cool, man. So then you're working with Denis. Not short after he won his first ITF. He won a G5 when he was around 14, right?
He had won. Yeah, he was 14. He was still under 14s at the time. But yeah.
Okay. And then did that? Was there involvement with Tennis Canada at the time? Like, were you working with Tennis Canada with him, or what was sort of the relationship?
No, Denis was a hobby.
A hobby.
It was a hobby. It was my night. It was my nights and weekends, and you know.
Okay. Yeah. So then, when did the hobby, like, when did your hobby turn into you making the decision to say goodbye to tennis, like your office role in Tennis Canada, and to step out and decide that, like, hey, me and this kid we're going for it.
Well, it got to a point where, like, we had to travel quite a bit, and there's no way I could have done both.
But that was playing on you, because we had that conversation, and it's going to be a risk, you know, because he had no idea what the future held for him, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a risk.
You're putting a lot of time into him.
It was a risk I wanted to take. I thought it was worth it, and why not? Like, you probably rarely, at that point, you rarely come across a kid at that level who's showing,
upswing,
that much potential, doing well, getting decent results already. So at that point, it's like, well, being a coach, you know, we're all coaches, right? And it's like, well, you have to try to take an opportunity. You have to take a little risk, and you know, worst case scenario, what's the worst that could happen?
That's right.
It's
brave.
You know, thinking like
Great,
that.
yeah.
So.
Okay. Cool.
Speaking of we're all coaches, we also all have one-handed backhands. I wanted to ask you.
Nice segue.
What's your opinion? So juniors with one-handed backhands, like these days, it seems to be highly frowned upon by coaches in general, at least on
the younger
club
progressive
level.
end.
Yeah, more club level. It's like no, two-handed backhands. Like kid's not strong enough to have a one-handed backhand or whatever. What do you think about that?
I've always had this same thought for the past 15, 20 years of coaching, and it's like, at the beginning, put them on two hands. Because we just want them to have more success, and we want to keep the kid in the sport and whatever. At a certain point, if it looks more natural, and everybody might have that at a different age, then you can try and play with it. I don't think there's no right and wrong. But I think, you're 5, 6, 7 years old. Maybe you're starting off. You want to be able to get the ball over the net, whatever it was.
Sure.
Because then if kids are fishing for the ball, not being successful, they might get turned off and go play soccer or hockey. So, but I'm for it. I mean, as long as you hit the ball and don't slice it for 7, 8, 9 years, and then eventually figure out, I can't hit I can't hit over the ball.
Yeah.
So,
which actually a good segue to. I remember you telling us a story back in the day about how you used to like scream at Denis every time that like a ball was within his zone, and he liked to chip and stuff like that.
So I did stop him from slicing a lot. Because I thought once he started slicing, his range of court coverage, and whether it's a rally or attacking or defending, it would be minimized, because you just go to the slice, which I call it bailing.
Gotcha.
In terms when you can fight, get behind it, and hit the ball and not be in defense.
Sure, sure. Was there ever a resistance from him? Like, was there ever resistance that he wanted to use a slice sometimes, and you were just all over him to rip?
He was pretty good at buying into things, and he was good at it too. Like it was very easy for me to prove to him, because then, like, try it here, and he would do it, and he would realize that it was possible for him to do it. But you can't just do it with a feed. You have to do it in matches and have the mentality of doing it.
Sure. Okay. Cool. So then, by the time Denis is like kind of 14 and on, getting to 15, you guys are touring pretty much full time at that point.
Orange Bowls and.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of the junior tournaments when he was what, 15. Like, we were playing all the junior Grand Slams. We started doing that. Actually, Australia was his first one. We realized he just had enough points that I thought he would be main draw, or a couple seeds in qualies. We were hoping not qualies, but he was going to get in his first junior Grand Slam. We thought the experience was going to be good for him, because it builds the hunger. You're there at a Grand Slam, and it ended off kind of working, and he qualified, and won a round, being a junior 30 in the world. So at the time, which was his biggest win.
Cool.
So it's kind of cool.
Okay, and then early I guess later on in that year when he was this in like 2015?
Yep, 2015.
He wins his first nationals, beating Alejandro Tabilo in the finals.
Yes.
And you'll see this is me and Winger taking a picture of Denis and Adriano. You'll see this on your screen right now. Shortly after that win, what was the feeling to have like your first national champion and for him to beat a guy who had won about 3 nationals in a row or something like that?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that because now you're at home. He actually won a nationals where everybody played. It was that was actually one of the last nationals that year where mostly everybody played.
So like
including defending champion. Felix was the only one who didn't.
Okay.
He was away in Europe, but everyone, all the kids 2 years older than him that were the 1 and 2 seeds, he was there and he beat the 1 and 2 seeds. So he legitimately won it.
Sure.
And he had never won a nationals before as well. So no 12s, no 14s, no 16s, and he had won that. So
So his first nationals was
15.
it was just before his 16th birthday,
okay.
like 4 or 5 days before that.
Gotcha. Okay.
It makes me think about like how so many parents today, they want their kids winning tournaments when they're 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, and at what cost? Sometimes it's just they're not developing a good game style. It's because pushing at that age might get the job done. Did you find that was that something that you, through your coaching career, is that something that you sort of do you approve of that, or what do you think of that sort of mentality?
I think winning early is not good.
Yeah, okay.
Winning too much early. They need to win. They need to win to get that feeling of that they can win and they don't want to lose all the time. But I think like winning an under 12 nationals it's great, but it's not gonna. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be great as an adult, great as a 16 or 18-year-old, because the game styles that win at that age aren't necessarily the game styles that are won at the higher level.
Sure. I found this was neat. So I was looking up some stats and stuff like that, and like Denis's win-loss record throughout his ITF career was just under a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yep.
So he's still he wasn't winning all the time. So I guess it's like, was that by design that he was like you were playing in enough events where he was winning a couple matches, but playing enough events that were still challenged at that
One
age?
thing I was sold on was the 3-to-1 win-loss ratio by some other coaches, some mentor coaches, and I kind of understood it, and I understood it more as we went through it. But it's also, remember, he did play nationals, he did play a couple of local tournaments, and that brought his ratio maybe to 5-to-1.
Sure.
Which is a little bit too much, but so the balance was good because then he's still winning, but he's being challenged optimally.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So then, like that summer, then after winning nationals, he starts going a bit of a tear, right? In 2015, he starts winning a bunch of ITFs and everything else. What was changing with his game, or what was changing with like the message that you were saying to him when he starts to have this more success internationally?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I always taught him to play the same game. Like I believe in a man's game. So he never played juniors with a junior game. He always hit through the ball, hit through the court, and I think he kept getting better at it. Like he got better at it, simplifying a couple of things in his game, but playing aggressive like he normally does. But now he started. The ball was going in more. The winners or forced errors to unforced errors was a little bit on the plus, and he always played. Since I started working with him on his how he came to me, he played on his terms. He's in control of 80 or 90% of the points.
Sure. Still on tour right now. It's the same
it's
thing.
Kind of, it's kind of like that. I mean, obviously not against the first serve of these pros, but when he's in control of the points and he's looking to dictate, he's not waiting for anybody to dictate on him.
Yeah. On that note, I remember there was a time. Sort of jump in here. We were all having a couple beers after some league match at Veneto. And so Denis was underage, so he was having a Coke, but we're all sitting there, and I remember you getting on Denis about like his backhand return, and you were like ragging on him for not being proactive enough on his backhand return, even when receiving like more challenging balls. I remember sitting there being like, in my head I was thinking, well, why is he asking him to be risky when he's receiving a risky ball? And at the time I didn't agree, but it's so funny seeing him now with like, I guess getting him to believe that he can do that regardless of the situation.
Well, I always want him to use those skills and work on them amongst playing with the doubles league, anything he did, because in the end it's meaningless. You don't need the result. But if he doesn't work on them, I don't think he's gonna acquire those skills.
See, this is all like long-term vision, right? It's like, yeah, go for it now. Who cares if you miss a little bit here and there? It's not like you have to win this match today. You have to win this tournament this week.
I still expected him to win.
Yeah.
So I expected him
But-
to go for it,
yeah.
but I expected him to win because it's not go for it and go for it loosely. It's
Right.
go for it with an attitude of trying to win the right way.
Well, you saw that because when we did our practices on Wednesday nights, when you were on our team before you got your Supreme Court, you saw Age how tough he was on him, and
hard,
I'm sure that drive home was even worse because it's only those two there. So.
Sure.
But that's
Sure.
right. You gotta.
It's obviously paying off, yeah. I mean,
I remember seeing this too. Like the last time that I practiced with the team and Denis was there, we were playing doubles. And remember, like I've had okay results at doubles, but I remember playing against Denis when he was in the net, and I've never seen anybody pick up the ball so early off a return or off my serve. Like I felt like the ball was maybe 2 feet off my racket, and
Boom, back at your feet.
he just knew where it was going to be. And I find that interesting. Like did you do a lot of like perceptual training with him to do that, or is that just an innate skill where he can just do it? He just sees where things are going.
It really started off with I just want him to get to every ball as fast as possible. If he was at the net ball line, he had to jump all over the ball, even if he got passed or whatever it was. And I think he built his eye. Like he built an eye where kind of this happens, that's going to happen, and
Sure.
he got better with that. But he had a killing attitude, like a go for it attitude. I think the personalities. It's what he had, and I think he just brought that out there after a while. And again, he started playing quite a bit now, like practicing with the guys, playing the league matches, plus the doubles he played in some of his tournaments.
The kids that you surround him with, the people, like he's got a lot of hours in.
So
Repetition.
So we're gonna, I guess, talk about your two new, the two juniors you're working with full time right now in a wee bit. But how beneficial, and I guess it's a shout out to like the Ontario competitive structure and I guess the Toronto League structure and everything else. But how beneficial do you think like men's doubles league was for Denis when he was growing up?
Big time. I believed in it for serving, returning, competitive, for fun. Communication with
people skills.
That's a big one.
with older guys, but our guys are good. All our guys wanted to play with the kid.
We're all competitive.
And they were competitive. They didn't want to lose, but they accepted it and they wanted to play with the kids, and that's why
We still do.
Yeah. I still want to play with them.
Even with the younger generation now, it's the same thing. But I believe in using those doubles leagues, and we have a pretty solid competitive structure at the OTA, which allows there's tournaments every single weekend for kids.
Sure.
At every age, so.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to take a real quick break to just have a little shout out from our new sponsor here, our potential new sponsor.
We got a new
else.
sponsor.
We got a new sponsor. We got a new sponsor.
Hey!
Right on.
Yeah.
I know,
So,
it's exciting, man.
So I guess we'll see you on the other side of this first segment here.
Perfect.
Oh my word! Can you believe the genius of this man? Unstoppable! Unstoppable! A lovely touch from Ronaldo. He's so gifted footballer. A moment of genius. An extraordinary player. Ronaldo.
This isn't the Euros, and I'm not Cristiano Ronaldo, but I don't need a swoosh across my chest to beat this guy.
Welcome back. Just a plug from Athletes Collective. Actually, I got a bunch of their clothes and stuff like that. So if you're looking for affordable tennis clothes that wash really well, that feel great, I know they sponsor the pod, but the stuff's really good. And you guys know, like, how much does the Nike tennis shirt cost?
$90. Too much.
Yeah, so
Too much.
Try
We're slamming
to
Nike on the pod?
Wow, we love Nike. Nike, we love it.
But you're pricey.
Yeah.
Pricey.
So if you're interested in affordable tennis clothes, like check the stuff out. It's really well made.
Yeah, got a personal message on every piece of item that you buy.
Right.
How about this stuff?
Yeah.
Can people order these and buy them?
You can order these mugs as well. Send in, when we ask you to participate, just send stuff in and we'll send you a mug.
That's real. Done. It's that easy, right?
Cool. So then.
So now what? We're going to, I'm guessing, U.S. Open?
Yeah.
Should we go there?
Sure.
So, he's dominating the Nationals here in Ontario and Canada. Him and Fields pair up, win the U.S. Open doubles. How did that feel? And what was that experience like?
that was kind of it was kind of awesome because at a time like you're there at a Grand Slam right to the end, and you know, even though it was doubles, but to win a Grand Slam or to do something like that, it was a pretty big deal, and and being a part of it, and at a certain point they were just they were winning. They would just win. They found a way to win. They won. They played well. I think they only played one tournament before that together, possibly, and they weren't even going to play together at the U.S. Open.
Why was that?
So I was telling him to play with Felix, but at the time Felix's coach was like, "Well, Denis is in qualies. Felix is in main draw. We don't know if Denis is going to get in. Then they might not make it." And I said, "Well, Denis's rank is almost main draw rank." And I said, "They're going to get in."
Sure.
I said, "Let's get them to play together." And he actually agreed. So
Was Felix with the National Center at this time?
yes.
Okay.
So he was there.
And then was it like how did that I'm sure there must have been conversation at this point when like Denis is having international success, he's winning ICFs, he's starting to play some futures, stuff like that, wins a junior slam. So what conversation starts with TC or between you guys and invites to the National Center and all that?
Every year, I think from 14 years old, he kept getting invited to the National Center. And his parents, his parents ultimately had the decision. But it was, they wanted to have his own personal team, stay at home as much as possible. As when you go there, you got to go to Montreal, you live with some, host family and things like that. And also, you're not in control of his tennis, where his mom had a vision for him. I continued, it was seamless and it worked well and things were going well. Had his own team, had his own physio from when he was 13, seeing him every single week. And things were going well, and so why change something that's going well?
Sure.
Kind of.
Now, did that affect like the funding potential that you guys got from Denis or for Denis? And
you go to Montreal, they pay for everything. You don't, you get nothing.
And I would say, I guess it's a bit of a tricky.
There were some performance standards which he could achieve, but I believe he deserved them. Like if he earned them, it's like you earn something, you get them. So
sure.
He met some performance standards, but that gives you a little bit of help. It's not what you need to actually do this proper.
Sure. And then was there? I'm trying to phrase this the way, but you're a Tennis Canada certified coach. You used to work for TC. Did you ever feel, maybe slighted is not the right word, but did you ever feel like you wanted this rationale for the decision to not give Denis funding because he wasn't at or as much funding because he wasn't at the National Center?
For me, I couldn't understand why they wouldn't want to support their best junior, their top, one of their top juniors if things are working well. And it kind of bugged me a bit, especially working for the federation.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand their position, and they created this national center, and,
sure.
and how everything kind of funnels through that, and all the money kind of goes together, I guess, in order to help a few kids. So I guess I can see their way of it as well. I could also see I thought he had good enough results that maybe they'd want to come in a little bit more and try to help out, even though it's not what they do with anybody.
It's possible they just want to open the door to more private kids.
And that's what I can understand, because if Denis is getting this treatment, then why can't I?
Right.
Now, again, if kids are going to have pretty decent results at that time, maybe it's worthwhile, but maybe there's a certain standard that you can come up with. Again, it's not easy when you have a certain type of system and that's what you're doing. It's very tough to do a one-off because you just open up a can of worms for everybody else.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So then, again, things going well internationally. You guys are essentially touring almost all the time now. You're not playing any events in Canada unless they're really internationally worthwhile events. Financially, it must have been tough on you. I'm sure it was tough on Tessa. So what steps did you guys take to just put him in a situation to compete internationally?
Well, at a certain point, I even said I would try my hardest to find a sponsor. I believe in the kid; he's doing well, and kind of the attitude of doing whatever it takes to make things work. And we ended up getting lucky. We got a sponsor, and kind of right after that kind of U.S. Open doubles win, and which really, I think it was another key to success. So many good things have to happen, and without that sponsor, I don't think that following year would have happened. It wouldn't have been affordable. It would have been tough.
Sure. Wouldn't evolve.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So walk us through that. Then we're 2016. This is sort of your last full year with Denis, 2016. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So mainly he goes and plays a really tough French Open, makes it to the semis of Junior French on a surface that's probably not his favorite surface. So how did that change, like not change, but how did that influence your mindset going into Wimbledon a couple weeks later?
Well, also before that, he had won 3 pro tournaments before the French Open, made the semis of a challenger, and then going into the French, he was seeded based on his pro ranking, not his junior ranking, because we didn't play many junior events that year, or the past year. And
As a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And then obviously his results were great, and his results were great on clay. He won his pro events on clay.
Oh yeah.
But he's on the green clay. But he's a hard court banger. I mean, he hits the ball hard, so he would have much more success, I thought, on faster courts. So I really believe going into Wimbledon. I mean, he played well also on the Roland Garros clay. But going into Wimbledon now his big shots are gonna skid. They're gonna skid. The ball's gonna come back less. His pressure style game is going to connect, and he had played the year before, qualified, made 3rd round, and so he had some grass experience. We went there for 3 weeks. The week before we trained, there's a junior tournament, warm-up tournament right before in Roehampton. He won that without losing a set, and he got broken once in the finals, the last set of the finals.
With Champagne.
But he was like, you just couldn't touch his serve.
How dare you?
You couldn't touch his serve. Like he was serving well, but at that point, everybody knew what he did in the pros already. They respected him for the French.
The big wins.
And again, he already had beaten 8 of the top 10 players. Like or something like that. He was beating all the top junior players. And then he went into Wimbledon, but now he's actually in there, I think, as the favorite, even though he was like 3rd or 4th seed or something. But to me, he was favored. He won the grass court World Tournament. The same kids that played that one played the other one.
Yeah.
Played Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So I think that people took him really, really serious, more serious, and I think he had that pressure of, I think I should be able to win this.
Sure. So then it goes to the draw, and like we talked on the squad cast about a little bit last time about like Alex de Minaur and like how skilled he is and stuff like that. And so you guys go through the Wimbledon draw, and it's the day of the finals.
Yes.
He's playing de Minaur. Talk us through, like, a couple of years ago you guys were playing just junior events in Canada. Now you're coaching the kids in the finals of the biggest junior tournament in the world, essentially the biggest junior tournament in the world, most prestigious. Talk us through the day. Like, what do you say to a kid to get him ready for that?
I actually, very few times that I do this, but I'm like, look, you have 11 wins in a row on grass. Just go have fun out there. You know what you have to do. You don't overthink it. Just go play, go have fun, and go enjoy it. Playing on court 1 over there. It's about 8,000, 9,000 people, I think, watching. But it was very, very, very few tactics, very few anything. I mean, he had gotten himself that far, playing well. Just believe it and go have fun and go enjoy it.
Right away,
if you're playing Wimbledon final.
You kind of only just address the psychology of stuff a little bit. That's it.
Didn't go much technical, much this, much that. Just go do your thing.
Keeping it simple.
And everybody was doing his thing. He's been doing his thing. He was doing it for a while, so don't want to change it. Just keep going and believe it.
So then they play the finals match. You're across the pond in London. We're at the pub here celebrating a big win.
Early morning. Yeah.
What was it like after you had won? What were the conversations like? Was there a feeling of accomplishment, or like just walk us through it?
Yeah, that was probably the biggest. At that time, it was the biggest feeling of anything. Just emotion, joy, relief. It was kind of crazy, but we couldn't enjoy it much because an hour later you had to play the doubles final. So you couldn't really enjoy it. I had hundreds and hundreds of messages on my phone. He had so many.
Sure.
It's just like, don't touch your messages right now, whatever. Talk to your parents, whatever. But like, just everybody talked to him. Everybody, people that I haven't heard of in 5 years were texting me. But so I can imagine, people, showing support and things like that, which was great.
Yeah.
But you have to focus on, basically get a meal down and go play doubles. And you know what? First set of doubles they won, but I can tell there's a little bit of just emotional exhaust. Sure. It was a long day. It was a long couple of weeks.
Yeah.
He just won something, and the other guys also ended up like they played
amazing.
The opponents played well too. I mean, it was they were up a set. Dennis and his partner Felix were up a set, and they were there.
Sure. It's like this one time Steve and I rallied 19 balls in a row.
Oh man,
the emotional exhaust after
19,
and then you're still.
I was
years ago.
I was
we had the court booked for the whole hour too. I think we did that in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It took us 10 minutes.
I knew I was track.
Shout out performing under pressure.
Progression tennis balls.
It was mini court.
Yeah.
That's a red ball. But so you guys win Wimbledon.
That's right.
What went into the decision of electing not to play Junior U.S. Open shortly after that?
Well, I guess if we go back, right after there he gets a wild card into ATP 500 in Washington.
Sure. Plays Lucas Lacko first
Plays
round.
Lucas Lacko first round. Loses like 6-4 in the third.
Has a chance.
But he was there with a top 100 player already. A little bit of hype there. Right after that, Rogers Cup wild card and plays Nick Kyrgios.
Who?
We all know Nick Kyrgios.
Who's Rogers Cup?
Sliced.
And again, a center court night match, whatever it was,
And you'll see. Sorry, there's going to be a picture showing up on your screen now too. This is
There it is.
Boat Ray Thompson and Winger in the crowd giving the fist bump and stuff
that
like
was
that.
good. Pink hats.
I can't forget that. You're not coming in the box with those big pants.
And you managed to be in that spot. The camera was on you all the time.
Would you say that Dennis only won because of Winger's pink pants?
I think the pink pants were like a big part of
Yes.
it.
On the
Right,
record.
yeah,
Right there.
right now. Thank you guys. I'm
In
one
fact, you
six.
have them.
I have them. I still fit into them.
Okay, 'cause I might need
That's right. Yeah.
I might need you to wear it for future events.
For sure, absolutely. When Josh is
The
in the
Wimbledon final next year.
That's right.
So then,
So after that whole Rogers Cup experience, beats Kyrgios, loses to Dimitrov. He had played like maybe 80-something matches already, and that's
Crazy.
in 8 months.
sure.
And the plan was we got to shut it down in a couple of weeks. He went on vacation.
Yeah.
Didn't touch a racket for 2 weeks. Because I think the emotion, mentally, physically, and with his parents, I think it was a smart decision. Obviously, he could have won a little bit more, maybe try to do something, more. Did he need to go play the U.S. Open? At the time, I think he beat 9 of the top 10 juniors.
Was he number 1 in the world for juniors?
He hit number 2.
Number 2.
But that's playing 3. That was with 3 tournaments. He could have played 3 more tournaments
Maybe become number 1.
Right.
to possibly have a chance to raise his ranking. But that was never the goal. The goal was just to play a couple of big ones, and he was doing well in the pro circuit. And I don't believe in playing up unless your level's there. So don't get me wrong. But he played the tournaments he had to play.
Sure.
I do find everyone's playing up way too much.
Everybody's playing up all the
And
time.
I'll say it all the time, way too much. For the wrong reasons. Look at the win-loss ratio.
Yeah.
Take care of that.
And just to reiterate that, Dennis started his junior career in ICS had a 3-to-1 win-to-loss ratio. So parents listening, this playing up stuff is fine if you're still maintaining a ratio that's consistent with that. That's a problem that I think we've talked about on the pod before. It's come up a few times, dealing with parents and this stuff. And
I think playing up saves the reputation of the kid and how the kid looks like against somebody else, or my son can't or daughter can't lose to this person, and in the end it's just a junior match.
Exactly,
It's absolutely nothing. Going back, Dennis winning nationals about how big of a deal was that nationals when he was junior Wimbledon? How big of a deal junior Wimbledon when he beats Rafael Nadal?
Sure.
Right.
So when you look at it that way, I think it's not that big of a deal. Just do the right thing for the kid. And I think the tougher tournaments to win are the ones that you're supposed to. So I thought at junior Wimbledon he was supposed to win it at that point, playing well at the warm-up tournament before there, doing well, and I think he had that on his shoulders as well.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about having too much success early at such a young age. So many parents now are putting the kids 11, 12 years old, they're playing U14 tour, transition tours, U16 tournaments, just because the points are worth twice as much because they want that.
They're chasing the ranking.
It's a thing. Because they lose first round of provincials.
There's a lot of ranking chasing and avoiding playing your own age. So if you lose,
That doesn't look bad on you.
I think if you can mix it, if you can play your own, play a little bit up, make sure that the win-loss ratio is okay, then you're doing the right thing.
What you're currently doing with your tour
I think that's a solid message.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's we're winding down to the end of 2016, and then I guess you had told me that conversation came up between you and, at the time, I guess, CEO Kelly Mermans at Tennis Canada, when he started to have some success internationally, and he started to have these big slam results. And do you mind like going into like what that conversation was like and everything else?
Just quickly, I guess, like, because everything was kind of done, you know, it was not through the national center. We were on our own, doing our own thing, and at the time, I think, now with this big international success, I think it's kind of like, let's join Team Tennis, let's pair up with Denis, let's help out Denis,
sure.
You know, in a way that's working for him.
Sure.
And then that's really kind of how it happened. And so it's kind of like, then a kind of a partnership formed, you know. And
do you think that, does your success with Denis kind of privately and not being really in the Tennis Canada system, do you think that changes how players and private coaches might be dealt with going forward, like because of Denis' success?
I don't know if it'll change it from the Tennis Canada perspective, but I can see it changing from the player, coach, parent perspective.
So you're seeing more
that one-on-one thing. That one-on-one thing, everybody's wanting to do it. Like, they kind of believe in it, because when you see success one way, it's easy to kind of
sure.
But again, there's not one avenue to do it. There's many different ways. You know, Felix came out of the
NTC,
out of the national center.
Yeah.
So great work there. Is it for everybody? I don't know, but everybody has. There's a recipe for success, and I think Denis is comfortable having his parents all the time when he's at home.
Sure.
His friends. He knew that his friends. He knew that I worked well with his parents.
Yeah.
You know, we were on the same page, and I think that comfort zone is really good for a player. They're young. They're young, and you want to keep them. Well, actually, as a coach, I mean, I'm uncomfortable on court, but the outside, the fun stuff, the regular life, it's important to have his family around. Sure, he's close with his family. I think that's a big deal. It's I think another part to a reason why he's successful.
So Age, after all this time together, all this success together, what sort of led to the decision for you guys to part ways, and
how difficult was it?
Yeah, how difficult was that?
I guess basically we were very close, which I think helped us kind of with a close relationship to actually have some great results and work well together. But however, I thought that as well as we were kind of too close, and sometimes a new face, different coaching would just be better, more refreshing for his next stage. As you know, sometimes it's kind of like you be so close to traveling with him so many. The past 2 years, before that, almost 40 weeks a year, is that you become everything to the guy, not just his coach.
Sure.
So I think it was just more of a fresh take on things. It was mutual. Everything was great. We still, we talk often. We're good friends. When he comes back, we hang out. The usual things. And so I think it was just kind of
neutral.
But I thought at the time it would be the best decision for him, and they all agreed. And
parents are on board because he's close to the family.
Yeah, and me, how tough was it? It was pretty tough because all that work put in. But I mean, in the end, he's having great success.
Right.
So I think it's great for him.
Yeah. And then it must have been tough. Because I know that would be able to stuck in my closet and hung on for dear life. You know what I mean? That's the way we go about things.
He tried that once, but I let him down big time. I couldn't make it.
Was that after your 19-ball rally?
It was shortly after.
As soon as you saw it, and you hit. It's like I hit 10 of those 19 balls.
Yeah, that's right.
19 balls in the air. And I already got my mind. This guy was going pro.
Yeah.
And he's like.
Yeah.
So then, so Denis said some.
Pretty high standards.
You must be pretty proud and pleased to see some of the results that Denis has had since. It's cool. Then remember you and I texting when he took out Nadal in Montreal. Was that like just seeing him beat that guy?
Well, I think it was kind of funny. I was watching it on TV. I had to watch the first couple of rounds there live, but I had to get back home and just watching that one on TV, thinking, oh my God, is this possible? Is it going to happen? And third set tiebreaker over there.
Magic happened.
It was kind of cool. It was kind of surreal. It started being Rafa. I'm a huge Rafa fan.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a big Rafa fan. So
great.
Cool. It was just awesome.
One of the things you mentioned earlier about just for him, just belief and just going for it, and playing the point like you're in charge of the point. Hearing him in his post-match interview after winning beating Nadal, he kind of mentioned some of that same stuff, like maybe not the exact same words, but he sort of just felt like, I got that one break, and I started just really believing I could win. I started just going for the ball, like you could see it. Some of that what you mentioned earlier.
But he's had that from before I coached him. He's had that same fearless, go for it attitude, which I think is a big part of his.
And since then, you got some new projects.
I do.
Couple of kids, yeah.
Couple 15-year-olds.
So working out full time with Josh Lapidat and Ilya Tiraspolsky. And tell us quickly a little bit about that. Like, what's it like? I guess life after Denis and life coaching 2 new kids.
Yeah, I guess I have high expectations. I expect to take them to a high level, or as far as I can. Obviously, pretty fast. I think knowing what I know, being through what I've been through, I think I can maybe shorten the curve a little bit. However, they're both different. They're both my new guys are totally different, and they're both different than Denis. And this scenario, I had Denis alone for a couple of years, just coaching him, and I think here it's like I got these 2 guys, and they gang up on me all the time.
You probably deserve it.
I might deserve it, which is fine, But
turn it down with more ciders.
But so it's a little bit different in that way, but it's still have my high expectations. Work hard.
Sure.
One lefty,
You get
which is
results.
good.
One's lefty.
Yeah, so-
One's lefty, one's righty. 2 different games, kind of 2 different game styles, 2 different athletes.
Right.
But their level's the same. They're close to the same. They train well together. They like training with each other, so it makes that part kind of easy. I don't have to find a hitting partner.
Right.
I don't have to hit in, which I can hit in.
Right there with you.
It's tough.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Well, I guess on behalf of the Supreme Court, best of luck going forward with your coaching and stuff like that, and all the endeavors you have to go. And if you're interested in Adriano stuff, you can check him out online at www.adrianofuorivia.com. You'll see that posted right now. And again, if you want to check us out online, I'm your host, Alistair Miller, and you can reach me at atennispodsteve on Twitter. And Steve's fresh to the Twitter thing, but
I'm pretty sure what his handle is right now. I'm pretty sure it's TSC Steve.
Okay.
But I don't even know where to go.
At TSC Steve, if you want to hit Steve Mahar.
Oh,
No.
At atennispodsteve, we were close. So let them know online.
At atennispodsteve.
There'll be a photo of the famous, influential Kenny Powers.
And then, or check out Wings.
We're just trying to get by, but it's at AJ Winger 81.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So feel free to hit us up. Give us some updates on our next future podcast.
Which is 2 weeks from now. We got another 2-3 weeks. We got another squadcast coming. Another week or so, we'll be having a podcast person with Dean Coburn, who is Peter Polansky's coach growing up. And that's sort of it for us here.
It's a new segments.
Oh, a couple of
They're gonna be
segments
fun.
Yeah.
Big crowd pleasers.
Live from the streets of Toronto.
That's it for us. Thanks again, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
Warren G, play us out.
All right.
So again, a big thank you to Adriano Fuorivia for jumping on the podcast and being so honest. Also, a huge thank you to our sponsor, Athletes Collective, for hooking us up with some great gear and everything else. Check them out online as well. Some news coming up on our end. We're going to bring on Dean Coburn sometime soon, who is Peter Polansky's coach growing up. That'll be for a podcast personal as well. On March 25th, 26th, our next Squadcast will drop. So that's the one with a lot of us. We'll have some fun new stuff on that. And big news on our end. We're invited back to do the Tennis Legends event, which will be in Toronto this year, May 17th at the Mattamy Athletic Center. I believe this year Max confirmed, James Blake is coming, Courier's coming, and Tommy Haas. So we'll have some fun live at Mattamy with those guys. But we appreciate you watching, and I guess check us out next time. Cheers.